Hey boys, how you doing? How's your week going? Hey, did I ever tell you about my wedding cake theory? Well, you gotta hear this one. Let's get into it. So the wedding cake theory basically says, behind every victory, there may be a bigger loss. Now, I want to explain this because as you go through life, you're going to find yourself fighting for stuff. And the thing about fighting is, whether it's a disagreement on the playground in kindergarten or a full-blown world war, everyone believes they're on the right side. And that's fair, that's just the way that is. But with victory, there can be negative consequences. And that's what the wedding cake theory is all about. Let me explain. In 2015, gay marriage was ratified across the United States. It became legal in all 50 states for same-sex couples to get married. Everyone celebrated. It was a joyous occasion. It was equality. It was great. Although part of me kept thinking, yay, we gave human beings the same rights as other human beings. We're so progressive. It's not really winning the race. It's still crawling up to the starting line. But anyways, let me move on. In 2012, a same-sex couple got married in Massachusetts, where it was legal. They lived in Colorado, so after their wedding, they went back home to Colorado, and they went to a local bakery in a town. And they asked for the baker to make them a wedding cake because they were going to have a reception there in town where they lived. The baker said, "I will not make you a cake because it goes against my religious beliefs for two same-sex people to get married. However, you are free to purchase any of the pre-made baked goods that I have." The couple was obviously disappointed, and they left. The couple later filed a complaint with the Civil Rights Commission in Colorado, and they took the bakery to court. And the court outcome said that the baker had to make cakes for couples in same-sex marriages or any other situation, even if it went against his religious beliefs. The baker appealed the case, and the appeals court came down on the same ruling, saying, you are a business and you cannot refuse your services to people based on your religious convictions. They viewed it as discrimination. It then went to the Supreme Court. Now, when it went to the Supreme Court, it was the early part of 2016, if I remember, and it was a very hot button topic. In fact, the argument was getting framed of civil rights versus religious freedom. Now again, by this time, the couple had already been married, they had gotten their cake from somewhere else, but the baker, understandably, didn't like the ruling that he was supposed to ignore his religious convictions and perform a service for something that he didn't feel was morally right. Now, I'm sure you know there was something else brewing in 2016, a pretty important election. And while it may not seem like it now, that case played a very important role in that election. On one side, you had people believing that the couple were getting their civil rights violated. On the other end, you had people with strong religious convictions feeling like the government was telling them that they couldn't adhere to their religious convictions and they had to do things that they felt were morally wrong. And this is one of the big reasons why we got this guy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Of course the baker should have made him a cake. I mean, why would you ever do that? That's really rude and reprehensible to refuse service to someone based on their sexual orientation. And yeah, okay, I can see that. But on the other end, think of it like this. But to the baker, creating a cake was his art. Okay? He offered to sell them pre-made baked goods that he already had. He wasn't refusing service, he was refusing to create. Think of it like this. Let's say I'm a musician and I make simple background music that people can purchase and license and use in their YouTube videos. I have maybe 200 songs that people can buy, and this is how I make a living, right? Let's say a group that I don't like comes to me. Let's say it's something like the Sons of the Confederacy. They come to me and they say, your songs are fine, but I want you to write us a song specifically for our Facebook video so we can use it to recruit people. And I would say, of course not. I think you're horrible and I don't want to have anything to do with you. Did I refuse them service? Or did I just refuse to participate? That's what I viewed this case as. So anyways, the case made it up to the Supreme Court, and the decision from the Supreme Court wasn't necessarily to side with one person or the other, but the decision was that the Colorado court had to reverse their decision, telling this baker that he had to create cakes for people and events that went against his religious beliefs. For people that are worried about freedom of religion, this was a pretty good thing for them. But to me, what's more curious is what we lost through all this. Okay? And this is where the wedding cake theory really comes in. Remember, even when you think you have a victory, there is always some collateral damage that leads to a loss. Again, if it wasn't for a whole group of people worrying that their religious freedoms were getting impinged on by the government, we would not have gotten this guy. And if we would not have gotten this guy, we would not have toddlers in cages at our southern border. We wouldn't have a loss of our standing around the world jeopardizing our national security. And we wouldn't have an out-of-control pandemic that has already killed 210,000 people and is killing about 1,000 more people a day. So yes, before that Supreme Court decision, it looked like civil liberties won. However, the price that was paid for it was pretty great. You see, there's a very small river that runs between I'm opposed to this, so I don't support it, and I'm opposed to this, and I want to destroy it. And the bridge that crosses over that river is formed by forcing someone to do something they don't want to do. That is what takes a belief and turns it into a cause. And that's the danger. So how could this have been handled? When that couple went in there in 2012 and the baker said, I cannot create a cake for you, it goes against my religious beliefs, what could they have done differently? One thing they could have done is they could have said, okay, I understand. Here's an invitation to our wedding. I hope you and your wife can come. We'd love to have you there. That was one option. Another option is they could have left. They went to another bakery to get their cake. And eventually the tide would have turned anyways because 3 years later, gay marriage became legal across the land and it has an enormously high approval rating. There are very few people that look at gay marriage the same way they did 10 years ago. But instead, what happened? They pushed this guy, and so he appealed, and he appealed, and he appealed. And this case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, to the point to where it became an election issue in one of the most consequential elections we've ever had in this country. And the fallout that has happened from the negative result of that election goes way beyond someone getting a wedding cake. These things are tricky, right? I mean, obviously, if this couple would have just left and got their cake from somewhere else and let it all go, and word would have gotten around that the person at this cake shop has religious views that don't really align with the popular view, he would have lost business. And maybe he would have changed his ways. Or maybe if he had attended one wedding, or if he would have gotten to know those people in the community better, he would have changed his mind. But he wasn't really given a chance to change his mind. He was told by a court that he has to do something in his own business that went against his religious freedom. And as a result, he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And as a result of that, we've had 4 years of steady erosion of our norms and values because of the consequential election in which that issue played a huge part of. So the moral of the story, fight for what you believe in, but make sure it's something significant and make sure it's something important. Because even if you win, there may be a bigger loss right around the corner. Anyway, boys, that's my theory. You got to come up with your own. And as always, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I think you're wonderful. We'll see you next week.